Krishna. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Reading from Sri Caitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami. Translations and purports by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nitinamane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Shunya Vadi Pashachade Shtarane. So, we're reading from Adi-lila, chapter 8, the author receives the order of Guru and Krishna. And we're on text 80. So, Adi-lila, chapter 8, text 80. Kala di devatamora madana mohan yanra sevaka raghunatha rupa sanatana. I accept as my family deity Madan Mohan, whose worshippers are Raghunath Das Goswami, Sri Rupa Goswami, and Sanatan Goswami. Yeah, so we were just hearing about how he was a little bit hesitant to write Caitanya Charitamrita, but then the devotees were ordering him, so he said, okay, I guess I have to do this. And then finally he went to Madan Mohan temple, and then the garland fell off the deity. Pujari put it around his neck, and he considered that the Lord's permission and blessings. And now he's, and then we ended the last class saying, with Krishnadas Kaviraj saying, as a wooden doll is made to dance by a magician, I write as Madan Gopal orders me to do so. So he's surrendering to the Lord, agreeing to be his instrument. And he's also honoring the Lord because this Madan Mohan deity was actually installed by Srila Sanatan Goswami. It's still there in that famous temple. Actually, the deity moved to Jaipur, but the temple is still there in Vrindavan. It's the one on the hill that has a big tall dome. Yeah. It's very picturesque. And that Rupa Goswami, Raghunath, all the Goswamis would go and visit Madan Mohan, worship him. Vrindavana dasera para padma kari dhyan tanra agyalana likhiyahate kalyana.
I took permission from Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur by praying at his lotus feet, and upon receiving his order, I have attempted to write this auspicious literature. Srila Krishnadasa Kaviraj Goswami took permission not only from the Vaishnavas and Madan Mohana, but also from Vrindavan Das Thakur, who is understood to be the Vyasa of pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Jai. So you got the blessings of everyone. Caitanya lilate vyasa vrindavana das tanra kripa vina anye nahaya prakasha.
Sri Vrindavan Das Thakur is the authorized writer on the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. Without his mercy, therefore, one cannot describe these pastimes.
I'm wondering, he says he took permission from him by praying. So I'm wondering if he actually met him in person or if Vrindavan Das Thakur had already left the world. We have to research to find out the lifespans. Murka Nicha Kshudra Muni Vishaya Lalasa Vaishnavagya Bale Kari Eteka Sahasa.
I am foolish, low-born, and insignificant, and I always desire material enjoyment. Yet, by the order of Vaishnavas, I am greatly enthusiastic to write this transcendental literature.
So he's feeling himself very low, but very empowered. So this is real humility. Real humility is you feel yourself to be low and unqualified, but you agree to act as the Lord's instrument, and you understand that although I'm not very qualified, and I have no power on my own, but if the Lord and the Vaishnavas choose to empower me, then I can do anything. But then after doing it, I don't become proud because I know it wasn't me. I know it wasn't by my strength, my intelligence, my whatever, that this came out. a success, but it was just the mercy of the Lord and the Vaishnavas, and all credit goes to them. So that's how we can be humble and at the same time do wonderful things in the service of the Lord without becoming proud. Because sometimes, people, they mistake humility for low self-esteem, and they think, in the name of so-called humility, oh, I can't do anything. I'm just useless. I won't do anything. And they don't do anything. So that's not real humility, because it's not acknowledging the potencies of the Lord. So it's like, okay, yeah, I can't do anything on my own, but Krishna can do everything. And if he wants, he can do anything through me. So, and then the other side, so one thing that's not humility, so one extreme is low self-esteem, where you just think yourself low and you basically disable yourself and don't do anything. And then the other thing is pride, that, you have excessively high self-esteem, and then you do something and you take all the credit for yourself, thinking, oh, I'm so smart, I'm so qualified, I'm so whatever, I did this great service for the Lord. Just see, everybody should praise me, everyone should acknowledge me, put a plaque of my name on the wall, what I did. So both of those are bad, both of those, it's just two sides of the same coin. It's just both of them are like basically thinking oneself too high, thinking oneself too low. The problem is that you're thinking about yourself. You're forgetting about Krishna, and you're thinking, oh, it's all up to me, I can't do it. Or it's all up to me, I did it. But actually it's all up to Krishna, and Krishna can use us to do it, things or not. So we just become like Krishna's Kaviraj, like a wooden doll in the hands of the Lord, and that's the best position to be in. Okay, let's go to text 84. Shri Rupa Raghunatha Charaner E Bala Yanra Smriti Siddhahaya Vanchita Sakala.
The lotus feet of Sri Rupa Goswami and Raghunath are my source of strength. Remembering the lotus feet can fulfill all one's desires.
Jai Shri Rupa Raghunatha Pade Yara Asha Caitanya Charitamrita Kahe Krishna Dasa. Pragati, are you able to read?
Yeah, can I read the next one? Which verse we are?
The last, text 85.
Okay. Sorry.
Otherwise,
Yeah.
go ahead,
Got
Nikesh.
it. Okay,
Oh,
got it.
okay.
Translation: Praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy, I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, following in their footsteps. Purport: Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport to Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Adi-lila, 8th chapter, in the matter of the authors receiving the orders of the authorities, Krishna and Guru.
Yeah. Yeah, so in the previous verse, he was saying that his source of strength are who? Yeah, Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami. And he understands that by remembering them, their lotus feet, then he's able to fulfill his desire to write this book for the pleasure of the Vaishnavas. And at every chapter, he ends by praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami, reminding himself that it's only by their mercy, their empowerment, that I'm able to do this. And I'm so grateful to them. And therefore, I continue praying at their lotus feet so I can, in gratitude for what I just wrote and in begging for the mercy to write the next chapter. Right. Okay, so that leads us to chapter 9, the desire tree of devotional service. Text 1. Tam Srimat Krishna Chaitanya Devam Vande Jagat Gurum Yasyanu Kampaya Swapi Mahabdim Santaret Sukham. All right, Pragati read. Oh, that was Pragati. Nikesh.
Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the spiritual master of the entire world, Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even a dog can swim across a great ocean. Purport: Sometimes it is to be seen that a dog can swim in the water for a few yards and then come back to the shore. Here, however, it is stated that if a dog is blessed by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he can swim across an ocean. Similarly, the author of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, placing himself in a helpless condition, states that he has no personal power, but by the desire of Lord Chaitanya, expressed through the Vaishnavas and the Madana Mohana Vigraha, it is possible for him to cross a transcendental ocean to present Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita.
Yeah. Yeah. So you've all seen a dog trying to swim? A dog. Sometimes someone throws a stick into the water. We had this dog, he was a Springer Spaniel, and he was trained to go get the stick and bring it back. So my father would take a stick and throw it into the pond. Way out in the pond, dog would go running into the water, and then as soon as he got over his, where his feet weren't touching the ground, then he's doing the doggy paddle and putting his nose out like this and going like this. So he's like struggling to swim. And then he gets the stick and then he's got it in his mouth and he's coming back. Anyways, it's like a big struggle for the dog to swim. But he liked the water and it was good exercise for him. So yeah, it's difficult for a dog to swim very far. And he doesn't have like his legs are not made for that. Like a duck or a fish, they have like the webbed feet and the webbed, like they have suitable body for swimming, but a dog doesn't have it. So Krishna Kaviraj is saying that he feels like a dog trying to cross the ocean, like impossible. It's like, okay, I can swim a little bit, but ocean, forget it. But he's saying that by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then even a dog can swim across the great ocean. In other words, by the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, even I can write the Chaitanya Charitamrita, or anyone can do something impossible, right? The impossible becomes possible by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya. Pragati.
Yeah, I was thinking, Prabhupada Priya, how to get this faith, like, how to get this level of faith that, okay, if Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy is there, I can cross the ocean. Because the impediments, I feel like, okay, even it, am I capable of getting the mercy of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu? Like, like feeling so low that are we even eligible? Does he even know us or like that?
Yeah, well, the good news is that Lord Chaitanya is Patita Pavana. He's a savior of the most fallen. So nobody's too fallen for Lord Chaitanya, right? We were watching that video the other day of Lord Nityananda and Lord Chaitanya and Jagai and Madai. So you may be bad, but you're not as bad as Jagai and Madai. So if by Gaunitai's mercy they were delivered, then we have a chance. So we can, yeah, their mercy is very powerful. No one is excluded. Right?
Thank you.
Okay. This thing is not working. Try.
Text 2. Jaya Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Gaura Chandra Jaya Jaya Dvaita Jaya Jaya Nityananda. Where's it? Oh, back to me. All glories to Shri Krishna Chaitanya, who is known as Gaura Hari. All glories to Advaita Acharya and Nityananda Prabhu. Jaya Jaya Shiva Sadi Gaura Bhakta Gana Sarva Vishta Purti Hetu Yanhara Smarana.
All glories to the devotees of Lord Chaitanya, headed by Srivas Thakur. In order to fulfill all my desires, I remember their lotus feet. Purport. The author here continues to follow the same principles of worship of the Panchatattva that were described in the seventh chapter of the Adi-lila.
So Krishna's cover is telling us that we need to take shelter of the Panchatattva, and then he's practicing what he preaches, right? When he's starting the chapter, first thing he does is take shelter of the Panchatattva. So it's showing us what to do. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunatha Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasa Raghunatha. Kritika?
It also remembers six Goswamis, Rupa Sanatan, Bhatta Raghunath, Sri Jiva Gopal Bhatta, and Dasa Raghunath. Purport. This is the process for writing transcendental literature. A sentimentalist who has no Vaishnava qualifications cannot produce transcendental writings. There are many fools who consider Krishna Lila to be a subject of art and who write or paint pictures about the pastimes of Lord Krishna with the gopis, sometimes depicting them in a manner practically obscene. These fools take pleasure in material sense gratification, but one who wants to make advancement in spiritual life must scrupulously avoid their literature. Unless one is a servant of Krishna and the Vaishnavas, as Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami presents himself to be in offering respects to Lord Chaitanya, his associates and his disciples, one should not attempt to write transcendental literature.
Yeah, this is important. So not everybody can just go ahead and write transcendental literature because, somebody might think, well, what's the problem? Somebody, it's good, they're doing some service, they're remembering Krishna, and they're trying to do some service for the acharyas or something. But if a devotee is not very experienced and not very learned and not very realized, then they can actually be doing a disservice, to the acharyas and to people who read their books by depicting things in a way that is just, terrible. Like Prabhupada gives the example here of people who write about the pastimes of Krishna with the gopis, and they depict them in ways that are just, obscene, kind of like just sexual or something like that. And then it becomes really just kind of gross, and it makes people who are pious and religious and looking for God, disgusted with Krishna, and they go and Adi-lila, and it repels them from that. And then, they might attract the wrong kind of people, right? Like people who are just lusty and frivolous and things like that. So we have to be very careful. This is not only writers, but also artists who paint the pastimes of Krishna with the gopis. Yeah, so sometimes they're just like really graphic, and they paint the gopis in such a way that, they're very sensuous. They're dressed in, not very chaste ways and things like that. So those kinds of pictures are not appreciated by the Vaishnavas, and they attract the wrong kind of thoughts and feelings.
Such a sinful.
Yeah.
God, that's the worst thing anyway.
We have it in the temple itself. You're not seeing?
What?
They're barely
Some of
clothed.
those well, the
Yeah.
one there, no, the one there is when they're bathing in the water. So
Yeah.
then they're not.
Yeah.
They're not dressed. Actually, the reality is that they were bathing naked, but the artist put some clothes on them.
No,
Yeah, I think they say that. Thank God they put some clothes in the painting.
But some of the gopis, their upper body is naked there.
So if you would have focused on them, they are wearing clothes. In actual reality, they're not wearing.
They're not
That's what
supposed to
I'm
be.
telling.
well, that artist is very intelligent, let me tell you, Sneha. If you're gonna see his paintings, he's super intelligent
Yeah.
artist. Yeah, they're talking about some like those.
BG Charm is legit, but there
Yeah.
are some artists that just, they make things like super sensuous and, like Prabhupada says, practically obscene.
They did the songs also.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This is Sankar Radha on the dance floor.
Oh yeah.
We'll hear pastime coming up later in the Caitanya Caritamrita, where sometimes devotees would bring, poems and books about Krishna to Lord Chaitanya. But Lord Chaitanya, he was very particular about what he would read, and it had to be very authorized. They couldn't have any subtle discrepancies. So then he had one devotee, Swarup Damodar, who was very close to him, who would, I think it was Swarup Damodar, before, if somebody brought something to Lord Chaitanya, I wrote this poetry about Lord Jagannath. So there's one pastime, he wrote a poem about Lord Jagannath, and he wanted Lord Chaitanya to read it. He thought Lord Chaitanya would enjoy reading his poetry about Lord Jagannath. So he said, I'm sorry, you can't just give it to the Lord. First, it has to go through, the Transcendental Literary Security Guard, Swarup Damodar. So Swarup Damodar read it, and he was just like, I'm not giving this to the Lord. And so the author was very upset. He's like, what's wrong? He said, no, it has something here that's not philosophically correct, and it's going to disturb the Lord. So it's better like it's not going to please him, it's only going to disturb him. So it'll be better for you if he doesn't read it because you don't want him to be disturbed with you, do you? So he was like sad. And then later, he explained the whole thing, like philosophically, what was wrong with it, so that the author understood. And then he learned a lesson there. But yeah, Lord Chaitanya was very careful. So in the same way, we should also be very careful, what we read. Make sure that the authors are actually devotees, because there are non-devotees that write commentaries on Bhagavad Gita and other books. And there are non-devotees that make songs about Krishna. There are non-devotees who lead kirtan, who paint pictures of Krishna. And, as pretty as they may be, as artistic as they may be, they're also kind of infused with the subtle contamination of that person's consciousness. So it's good to make sure everything is sourced properly, right? From devotees. Okay, text 5. Isabha prasade liki Caitanya lila guna janivana jani kari apana shodhana.
It is by the mercy of all these Vaishnavas and Gurus that I attempt to write about the pastimes and qualities of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Whether I know it or not, or know not, it is for self-purification that I write this book. Purpose. This is the sum and substance of transcendental writing. One must be an authorized Vaishnava, humble and pure. One should write transcendental literature to purify oneself, not for credit. By writing about pastimes of the Lord, one associates with the Lord directly. One should not ambitiously think, I shall become a great author. I shall be celebrated as a writer. These are material desires. One should attempt to write for self purification. It may be published or it may not be published, but that does not matter. If one is actually sincere in writing, all his ambitions will be fulfilled. Whether one is known as a great author is incidental. One should not attempt to write transcendental literature for material gain and fame.
Yeah, so Prabhupada always encouraged his disciples to write. Not necessarily that it's going to be published, but to write for our own purification, to write our thoughts like in a journal or a diary, or write down our realizations. Or sometimes it's helpful, like if you're studying something or there's a topic that you don't really understand, or something that you read that kind of disturbs you, right? So then you can actually research that topic, find out other things that Prabhupada said about it, ask devotees about it, and like write something, put it all together and write an article or write a little something. You just put it all down in writing for your own understanding, because when we write things down, then it solidifies our understanding on the topic. So that can be really helpful. And then it might just help others too, right? Maybe somebody comes along a few years later and is like, I just read this or I just heard this and I'm really disturbed. I don't really understand. This seems really contradictory to philosophy or something. And you're like, oh yeah, I felt the same way a few years ago, and I researched it and I asked devotees about it, and listened to some classes about it, and I actually wrote a nice little piece on it that helped me understand, and I think it might be able to help you too. So then you can share your realizations and your understandings that way when it's written down. Otherwise, if you don't write it down, then you could talk to them about it, but you might forget all the points and the verses and the references and the who said what and when and where. So writing is good that way. Kind of makes everything permanent, right? Yeah. Especially when you get old, right? You forget everything. Like you didn't know something and you asked somebody and you got an answer to your question, and then you forgot the answer, and then a month later you still had the same question.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, that's old age for you. Text 6. Malakara Swayam Krishna Prema Mara Taru Swayam Tata Bhukta Tat Balana Yastam Chaitanyam Ashraye.
Excelsior of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Chaitanya himself is the tree of transcendental love of Krishna, its gardener, and also the bestower and the enjoyer of its fruits.
So now he's introducing the topic here of Lord Chaitanya as the transcendental tree. So he's the tree of love of Krishna, and he's also the gardener who takes care of that tree, and he's also the enjoyer of the fruits. So he's the tree, the person who grows the tree, and the person who eats the fruits of the tree. Basically everything. So let us see how this is so. 6, 7. Prabhu kahe ami vishvambara nama dhari nama sarthakahaya yadi preme vishvatpari. Nikesh?
Lord Chaitanya thought, my name is Viswambara, one who maintains the entire universe. Its meaning will be actualized if I can fill the whole universe with love of Godhead.
Yeah. So this is how Lord Chaitanya maintains the universe. He doesn't maintain it by holding the planets in order or making sure there's enough sunlight and rain and so forth, but he maintains it by filling it with love of God, because this is really what the need is, right? This is what all souls in this world are hankering for and thirsting for, is love of God. So he's saying this is really the way to maintain the universe, is by making love of God available to the fallen souls. Ita Chinti Laila Prabhu Malakara Dharma Navadvipe Arambila Palodhyana Karma. Sneha? Or did we skip Nikesh? Go ahead, Nikesh.
Yeah.
What? He just read?
Yeah.
Oh, then it's my turn. Thinking in this way, he accepted the duty. See what I told you about old age? Thinking in this way, he accepted the duty of a planter and began to grow a garden in Navadvip. Jai. Sri Chaitanya Malakara Priti Vidyayani Bhakti Kalpataru Ropila Sinchi Inchapani.
No,
Okay.
Thus the Lord brought the desired tree of devotional service to this earth and became its gardener. He sowed the seed and sprinkled upon it the water of his will. Purport. In many places, devotional service has been compared to a creeper. One has to sow the seed of the devotional creeper, Bhakti Lata, within his heart. As he regularly hears and chants, the seed will fructify and gradually grow into a mature plant and then produce the fruit of devotional service, namely love of Godhead, which is gardener Malakara. I can then enjoy without impediments. Nice.
So yeah, we hear about the Bhakti Lata, the devotional creeper, and here we're hearing about the Bhakti Kalpataru. So taru is a tree, and Kalpataru is a tree that fulfills all desires. So this is the tree of bhakti that fulfills all your desires, or the desire tree of devotional service. Like there's that website, right? ISKCON Desire Tree. You go there and you can find all the lectures, all the ebooks, all the whatever you want. So
we become Bhakti Lata leads to Bhakti
Kalpavruksha.
Bhakti Kalpa Vriksha, Bhakti Kalpa Turu. Yeah, so Lord Chaitanya, he's saying that Lord Chaitanya brought the tree. He didn't bring just a, delicate little creeper. He brought a tree. He brought it big and strong. And like, creeper can be broken easily, but a tree is solid, is situated very firmly. Jaya Shri Madhavapuri Krishna Prema Pura Bhakti Kalpa Turura Tenho Pratama Ankura. Who's reading?
All glories to Sri Madhavendra Puri, the storehouse of all devotional service unto Krishna. He is the desire tree of devotional service, and it is in him that the seed of devotional service first fructified. Purport. Sri Madhavendra Puri, also known as Sri Madhava Puri, belonged to the disciplinic succession from Madhvacharya and was a greatly celebrated sannyasi. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the third disciplinic descendant from Sri Madhavendra Puri. The process of worship in the disciplined succession of Madhvacharya was full of ritualistic ceremonies with hardly a sign of love of Godhead. Sri Madhavendra Puri was the first person in that disciplinic succession to exhibit the symptoms of love of Godhead and the first to write a poem beginning with the words Adi-lila Dayadra Natha. Dayadranatha, O supremely merciful personality of Godhead. In that poem is the seed of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's cultivation of love of Godhead.
Hmm. Yeah, so Madhavendra Puri is very significant in our disciplic succession because he's the first one who really started practicing bhakti in a new way. Like he's saying here that Madhvacharya is our the Sampradaya Acharya of the Madhva line. Yeah, that's why it's called the Brahma Madhva Sampradaya. But his process of worship is saying was full of ritualistic ceremonies with not, his Prabhupada says, with hardly a sign of love of Godhead. So Madhavendra Puri came in that line, took initiation in that line, but he was, like it says here, he was a storehouse. I mean, it says Krishna Prema Pura. Pura means a city, right? Like Jagannath Puri or something, a Pur, a lot of Indian cities end with Pur. So Krishna Prema Pur, he was like a city of Krishna Prema, the storehouse of all love of Godhead. And so he changed the mood of the Sampradaya by his existence, by his mood. So that was significant. And then his disciple was Ishvara Puri, and Ishvara Puri was the guru of Lord Chaitanya. So Lord Chaitanya was the grand disciple of Madhavendra Puri. Lord Chaitanya's relationship with Madhavendra Puri was like our relationship with Srila Prabhupada, our own guru. So he was very, very important. Okay. Shri Ishvara Puri Rupe Ankura Pushtahaila Apane Chaitanya Mali Skanda Upajila.
The seed of devotional service next fructified in the form of Sri Ishvara Puri, and then the gardener himself, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, became the main trunk of the tree of devotional service. Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes in his Anubhasya, Sri Ishwar Puri was a resident of Kumarahatta, where there is now a railroad station known as Kamrahatta. Nearby there is another station named Halisahara, which belongs to the Eastern Railway. This railway runs from the eastern section of Calcutta. Ishwar Puri appeared in a Brahmana family and was the most beloved disciple of Sri Madhavendra Puri. In the last portion of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya 8:28-31, it is stated, Ishwara Puri Gosai Kare Sri Vatsevana Swahase Kare Namala Mutra Marjana
Nirantara Krishna Nama Karaya Smarana Krishna Nama Krishna Lila Sunaya Anukshana Ushtahana Puri Tanre Kaila Alingana Varadila Krishna Toma Hauka Premadana Se Haite Ishvara Puri Primera Sagaya.
At the last stage of his life, Sri Madhavendra Puri became an invalid and was completely unable to move. And Ishwar Puri so completely engaged himself in his service that he personally cleaned up his stool and urine, always chanting the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra and reminding Sri Madhavendra Puri about the pastimes of Lord Krishna in the last stage of his life. Ishwara Puri gave the best service among his disciples. Thus, Madhavendra Puri, being very pleased with him, blessed him, saying, My dear boy, I can only pray to Krishna that he will be blessed with you. Please. He will be pleased with you. Thus, Ishwar Puri, by the grace of his spiritual master, Sri Madhavendra Puri, became a great devotee in the ocean of love of Godhead. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti states in his Gurvashtak prayer, Yasya prasada bhagat prasada Yasya prasada nagati kutopi. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one is blessed by the mercy of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement.
It is by the mercy of the spiritual master that one becomes perfect, as vividly explained here. A Vaishnava is always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but if he appears to be an invalid, this gives a chance to his disciples to serve him. Ishwarapuri pleased his spiritual master by service, and by the blessings of his spiritual master, he became such a great personality that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu accepted him as his spiritual master. Srila Ishwarapuri was the spiritual master of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but before initiating Lord Chaitanya, he went to Navdeep and lived for a few months in the house of Gopinath Acharya. At that time, Lord Chaitanya became acquainted with him, and it is understood that he served Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by reciting his book Krishna-lila Amrita. This is explained in Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat Adi Khanda, chapter 11. To teach others by example how to be a faithful disciple of one spiritual master, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, visited the birthplace of Ishwarapuri at Kumarhatta and collected some earth from his birth site. This he kept very carefully and he used to eat a small portion of it daily. This is stated in the Chaitanya Bhagavat, Adi Khanda, chapter 17. It has now become customary for devotees following the example of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to go there and collect some earth from that place.
Yes, so here we're seeing the power of the blessings of the spiritual master. So yeah, Ishwarapuri, when Madhavendra Puri was very old and he was bedridden and he needed a lot of personal care, so Ishwarapuri was right there doing all the personal service, cleaning him up and bringing him whatever he needed, and yeah, doing very, very menial service for him. And then he got the blessings, right? My dear boy, I can only pray to Krishna that he will be pleased with you. And just like that, Ishwarapuri became a Mahabhagavat. Despite his blessing from the Mahabhagavat devotee. So yeah, that's Prabhupada says the secret of success in spiritual life is pleasing the bona fide spiritual master. And when we please them by our service and get their blessings, then we can make a lot of spiritual advancement very fast. So yeah, that's what he's saying, that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, by the mercy of the spiritual master, one gets the mercy of Krishna. Without the mercy of the spiritual master, one cannot attain the goal, pure love of God or going back to God. So that is essential. That's a necessity. To have a relationship with the spiritual master, to serve the spiritual master, to please the spiritual master and get the blessings of the spiritual master. Without that, we're stuck in the cycle of repeated birth and death, birth after birth. Because without the mercy of the spiritual master, it's very difficult to get the mercy of Krishna. But if you get the mercy of the spiritual master, then very easily so much mercy from Krishna flows. Hare Krishna. Oh. Oops. What happened is I'm doing like an online class. Yeah, I forgot about this. I'm doing an online class for Delaware devotees at 5:30, so we moved this to 4. Yeah.
Do we make later?
At 7? No.
So you have both classes?
Yeah, I have a class from 5:30 to.
Okay. Well, I guess we'll always do.
Okay. Sorry. Aw. Too many things going on. Okay. Okay, where were we? Oh yeah. So yeah, and Prabhupada points out here how Ishwarapuri actually, he met Lord Chaitanya before and he read to him. Apparently Ishwarapuri wrote a book called Krishna-lila Amrita, which he recited to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And that's how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu got to know him, and he appreciated his book, and then he became his disciple. So that's very sweet. Okay, let's go to text 12. Nija chintya shaktye mali hanaskandahaya sakala shakara se skanda mula shaya.
By his inconceivable powers, the Lord became the gardener, the trunk, and the branches simultaneously.
So Lord Chaitanya is very invested in this tree. He's really making sure this tree is solid, right? He's the tree, the gardener, the trunk, the branches, the eater of the fruit. So yeah, so he's going down to the disciplic succession, saying that the seed of the tree was first planted by Madhavendra Puri. Later it fructified in the form of Sri Ishwarapuri, and then it grew into the trunk, grew from there, and that trunk was Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Paramananda Puriyara Keshava Bharati, Brahmananda Puriyara Brahmananda Bharati, Vishnu Puri Keshava Puri Puri Krishnananda, Shri Nrsimha Tirtha Ara Puri Sukhananda, Enava Mula Nikarshila Vriksha Mule, Enava Mule Vriksha Karila Nishchale.
Brahmananda Puri, Keshava Bharati, Brahmananda Puri, and Brahmananda Bharati, Sri Vishnu Puri, Keshava Puri, Krishnananda Puri, Sri Nrsimha Tirtha, and Sukhananda Puri. These 9 sannyasi roots all sprouted from the trunk of the tree. Thus, the tree stood steadfastly on the strength of these 9 roots. Bhagavad. Paramananda Puri. Paramananda Puri belonged to the Brahmana family of Tribhuta district in Uttara Pradesh. Madhavendra Puri was his spiritual master. In relationship with Madhavendra Puri, Paramananda Puri was very dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In the Sri Chaitanya Bhagavata, Antya Khanda, there is the following statement. Very long statement. Among his sannyasi disciples, Ishwara Puri and Paramananda Puri were very dear to Madhavendra Puri. Thus, Paramananda Puri, like Swarup Damodara, who was also a sannyasi, was very dear to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and was his constant associate. When Lord Chaitanya accepted the renounced order from Paramananda Puri, offered him the danda. Paramananda Puri was also engaged in the meditation, and Sri Swarupa was also engaged in the chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. As Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu offered full respect to his spiritual masters through Ishwara Puri, he similarly respected Brahmananda Puri and Surupa Damodara. It is described in Chaitanya Bhagavata Antya Khanda chapter 3 that when Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu first saw Brahmananda Puri, he made the following statement. My eyes, my mind, my religious activities, and my acceptance of the sannyas order have now all become perfect because today Madhavendra Puri is manifest before me in the form of Paramananda Puri. The Chaitanya Bhagavata further states, thus Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu extended respectful obeisances with Paramananda Puri, who was very dear to him. Paramananda Puri established a small monastery behind the western side of Jagannath temple, where he had a well dug to supply water. The water, however, was bitter, and therefore Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prayed to Lord Jagannath to allow Ganges water to come into the well to make it sweet. When Lord Jagannath granted the request, Lord Chaitanya told all the devotees from that day hence the water of Paramananda Puri's well should be celebrated as Ganges water, for any devotee who drink it or bathe in it would certainly get the same benefits as that derived from the drinking or bathing in the waters of the Ganges. Such a person would suddenly develop pure love of Godhead. It is stated in the Chaitanya Bhagavata Adi-lila that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu used to say, I am living in this world only on account of the excellent behavior of Sri Pramananda Puri. The Gaura Ganodhesha Deepika 18 states, Puri Sri Paramanando Ya Shri Uddhava Pura. Paramananda Puri is none other than Uddhava. Uddhava was Lord Krishna's friend and cousin. And in Chaitanya Lila, the same Uddhava became the friend of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his uncle in terms of the relationship in the disciplic succession. Kesava Bharati. The Saraswati, Bharati and Puri Sampradayas belonged to the Sringeri Matha in the South India, and Sri Kesava Bharati was at that time was situated in the monastery in Patwa, belonged to the Bharati Sampradaya. According to some authoritative opinions, although Kesava Bharati belonged to the Sankara Sampradaya, he had formerly been initiated by a Vaishnava. He is said to have been a Vaishnava on the account for having been initiated by Madhavendra Puri. For some say that he took sannyasa from Madhavendra Puri. The temple and deity worship started by Keshav Bharati are still existing in the village known as Katundi, which is under the postal jurisdiction of the Kandara in the district of Burdan. According to the managers of that matha, the priests and the descendants of the Keshav Bharati and some that the worshipper of the deities are the descendants of the sons of Keshav Bharati. In his householder life, he had 2 sons, Nishapati and Ushapati, and a Brahmana of the name Sri Nakadichandra Vidyaratna, who was also the member of the family of Nishapati, was the priest in charge of the at the time that Sri Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati visited this temple. According to some, the priests of the temple belong to the family of Kesava Bharati's brother. Still another opinion is that they descend from the Madhava Bharati, who was another disciple of Kesava Bharati's. Madhava Bharati's disciples Balabhadra, who also later became a sannyasi of the Bharati Sampradaya, had two sons in the family life named Madana and Gopala. Madana, whose family surname was Bharati, lived in the village of Auriya, and Gopala, whose family surname was Brahmachari, lived in the village of Dinduda. There are still many living descendants of both families. In the Gaura Ganadesha Dipika 52, it is said, Sandipani Muni, who formerly offered the sacred thread to Krishna and Balarama, later became Keshava Bharati. It is he who offered sannyasa to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There is also another statement about Kesava Bharati from the Gaura Ganudaksha Dipika 117. According to some authoritative opinions, Kesava Bharati is an incarnation of Akrura. Kesava Bharati offered sannyasa order to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the year 1432 Sarkavda in Katwa. This is stated in the Vaishnava Manjusa Part 2. Brahmananda Puri. Sri Brahmananda Puri was one of the associates of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu while he was performing Kirtana in Navadip. And he also joined Lord Chaitanya in Jagannath Puri. We may note in this connection that the name Brahmananda is accepted not only by Mayavadi sannyasis but by Vaishnava sannyasis also. One of our foolish godbrothers criticized our sannyasi Brahmananda Swami, saying that this was a Mayavadi name. The foolish man did not know that Brahmananda does not always refer to the impersonal Brahman. For a Brahman, the supreme Brahman is Krishna. A devotee of Krishna can therefore also be called Brahmananda. This is evident from the fact that Brahmananda Puri was one of the chief sannyasi associate of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Brahmananda Bharati. Brahmananda Bharati went to see Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath house. At that time, he used to wear only a deer skin to cover himself, and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu indirectly indicated that he did not like this deer skin covering. Brahmananda Bharati therefore gave it up and accepted a loin cloth of saffron color, as used by Vaishnava sannyasis. For some time, he lived with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu at Jagannath Puri.
Yeah, so we got a little bit of a transcendental encyclopedia here about these personalities who are the roots. Says they're the roots of the Chaitanya tree, right? The tree stood steadfastly on the strength of these 9 roots. So these are all sannyasis who are very close associates of Lord Chaitanya. And Keshava Bharati is the sannyasi from whom Lord Chaitanya took sannyas. And it's interesting that even though he's said to be in the initiated in the Shankar line, but it says he is, let's see, according to some authoritative opinions, although he belonged to the Shankar Sampradaya, he had formerly been initiated by a Vaishnava. He said there had been a Vaishnava account of being initiated by Madhavendra Puri. So, yeah, some say that he took sannyas from Madhavendra Puri. So that's interesting to know, right? Because sometimes people say that Lord Chaitanya, it's just like, it's a little disturbing that Lord Chaitanya took sannyas from a Mayavadi, right? So then there's this little backstory that actually Keshava Bharati was not a full-blown Mayavadi, but he was actually a Vaishnava, and he got his sannyas from Madhavendra Puri, who was a storehouse of love of God, nowhere near being a Mayavadi. Good. And then you can imagine this Paramananda Puri. He was there when Lord Chaitanya took sannyas, and he was the one that handed him his danda. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine the feeling of like handing the Supreme Personality of God his danda? Mm-hmm. Here you go. So these are all very amazing personalities who are eternal associates of the Lord, not just Lord Chaitanya, but we're hearing that they have their services, their personalities in Krishna Adi-lila also. Okay, text 16. Madhya Mula Paramananda Puri Mahadhira Ashtadike Ashtamula Vriksha Kailastira. Nikesh.
With the sober and grave Brahmananda Puri as the central route and the other 8 routes in the 8 directions, the tree of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu stood firmly.
So it looks like Paramananda Puri was very, very important. He was the center, like there's usually like a tap root, there's one that just goes straight down, and then the others to get the deep water, for the tree, and then the others that spread out and to make it steep. So with those 9, it was stood very firmly. Skandera upare bahu shaka upajila, upari shaka asankhya haila. From the tree grew many branches, and above them innumerable others. So all the branches are coming up. Visha shaka kari eka mandala, maha shaka chaya brahmanda sakala.
Thus the branches of the sorry. Thus the branches of the Chaitanya tree formed a cluster or society with great branches covering all the universe. Purport. Our International Society for Krishna Consciousness is one of the badges of the Chaitanya tree. Period.
Eka shakate upashaka sata yata upajila shakate gani vikata.
From each branch grew many hundreds of sub-branches. No one can count how many branches there's.
Mukhya shaka gane nama aganana agate kariba shuna vrikshera varnana.
I shall try to name the foremost of the innumerable branches. Please hear the description of the Chaitanya tree.
Vrikshera upare shaka hailadu iskanda eka advaita nama ara nityananda.
At the top of the tree, the trunk branched into two. One trunk was named Sri Advaita Prabhu and the other Sri Nityananda Prabhu.
So these are the main branches. The tree has, and then it branches out 2 main big branches, right? Sometimes the trunk goes up and then it splits into 2 very thick branches, and then all the other branches come. So those 2 thick branches are Advaita, Acharya, and Nityananda. Se dui skande bahu shaka upajila, tara upashaka gane jagachaila. Who's reading? Oh, Nikesh.
From these 2 trunks grew many branches and sub-branches that covered the entire world.
Yeah, I covered the entire world. This is a big tree. Branched out so broadly. It covered the whole world. Bara shaka upashaka tara upashaka yata upajila tara kekari beleka. These branches and sub-branches and their sub-branches became so numerous that no one can actually write about them. So many. Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, it's like there's Lord Chaitanya and Dvaita, and he had his followers, and Nityananda had his disciples, and then they had their disciples, and then 6 Goswamis, and they had their disciples, and they had their disciples, and those disciples had disciples. And I mean, if you just think about like the ISKCON branch, it's like, okay, it started with Srila Prabhupada, and then he initiated so many disciples. His disciples initiated so many disciples. Their disciples are going to initiate there's so many disciples. And then it's just going to keep branching out, right? From one Prabhupada to the branches and the sub-branches and the sub-branches and the sub-branches. And it's just going to cover everything. Yeah. 20, right? 20? No, sorry. 24. Shishya prati shishya para upashishya gana jagadya latara nanika ganana.
Thus the disciples and the grand disciples and their admirers spread throughout the entire world, and it is not possible to enumerate them all.
Udumbara vrikshayena phale sarva ange ekmata bhakti vrikshe sarvatra phale lage.
The big fig tree bears fruits all over its body. Each part of the tree of devotional service bore fruit. Purport. This tree of devotional service is not of this material world. It grows in the spiritual world where there is no distinction between one part of the body and another. It is something like a tree of sugar, for whichever part of such a tree one tastes, it is always sweet. The tree of bhakti has varieties of branches, leaves, and fruits, but they are all meant for the service of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are 9 different processes of devotional service: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. But all of them are meant only for the service of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, whether one hears, chants, remembers, or worships, his activities will yield the same result. Which of these processes will be the most suitable for a particular devotee depends upon his taste.
So you've seen, like, Prabhupada's talking about fig tree. I think it's like a, like a jackfruit tree. So see a jackfruit tree, sometimes the fruits are just popping out of the trunk. Sometimes the branch, sometimes like the big part of the branch, sometimes the end. Like most trees, the fruits come like at the end. They come like at the end of the branch, like at the end of the twig, they're hanging off the twig. But something like a fig tree or jackfruit tree, the fruits are just popping out all over from all parts of the tree. So Prabhupada is saying that, Krishna's Kaviraj is saying that this bhakti, the tree of devotional service, the fruits come from all parts of it. Whatever part, all the parts are giving fruit. And then he uses this as an analogy for all the different processes of devotional service, that whatever process of devotional service you practice, it's going to bear fruit, right? It's not that just, one process leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, and only that end one bears fruit. Or that, and either one can give full fruits. And some are more attracted to some, and some are more, like some devotees, they love kirtan. All they want to do is kirtan, right? And then other devotees, they love archana, deity worship. They just want to be on the altar all the time, doing stuff for the deities. And so devotees and other devotees like to hear. They like to just sit in class and listen, hear lecture after lecture after lecture. So according to the taste, we perform our devotional services, and then we get the fruits from whatever. Okay, text 26. Mula skandera shaka ara upashaka gane lagilaye prema pala amrita ke chine.
Since Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was the original trunk, the taste of the fruits that grow on the branches and sub-branches surpassed the taste of nectar.
So Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, and Krishna is very sweet, right? It says that his, that song Madhuram Madhuram. Everything about he's called the Emperor of Sweetness, and everything about him, his smile is sweet, his flute is sweet, his feet are sweet, his hair is sweet, his glance is sweet, everything is sweet about the Emperor of Sweetness. So Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, and he's also very sweet, and because he's the origin of all this, he's the trunk, then everything that grows out of that sweet trunk is also going to be sweet. Surpassing, and the fruits that come from that tree are going to surpass the taste of nectar. Amritake jine means they conquer nectar. And what are the fruits? Prema phala. They're the fruits of love for Krishna. So the trunk is Krishna, Lord Chaitanya. The fruits are love of Krishna. And whoever tastes those fruits becomes intoxicated with love of God.
Sorry, can I say something?
Yeah.
I just feel like when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was like really present on this earth, like anyone who would like even just see him, like even a glance of him, like I don't think so he needs to do anything like he doesn't need to say a word. It's just like they would just see him and they're like, okay, I'm yours. Tell me what I need to do.
Yeah,
it's
that's
like,
how it was.
I mean, wow.
Yeah, he was so attractive and so influential and so sweet that just mobs of people. We'll hear later when we get Chaitanya Charitamrita. Mobs of people, millions of people were just like blocking around him.
Preaching or say a word. It's like even just from distance you see, okay, he's there. I'm ready, whatever you say.
Yeah.
Yeah. God.
Okay, 5 o'clock.
Jai.
Jai.
So good. The class was so good.
Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai.
Jai.
Raj Goswami
Ki jai.
Jai.
Ki jai.
Jai.
Hari Bol.
Hare Bol.